You didn't plan for this. Nobody ever does. It started 3 days ago with a phone call from your cousin, Miguel. He said it was simple. Drive a car from Nogales to a house on the edge of the city, leave the keys on the seat, walk away. $500 cash. You needed rent money. You said yes. The drive took 40 minutes. The house was behind a rusted gate, surrounded by desert. No neighbors, no street signs. You parked the car, you left the keys. But when you turned to walk away, a man was already standing behind you. Wide shoulders, tattoos from his jaw to his collarbone. He wasn't angry. That was the terrifying part. He just smiled and said, "Come inside. Miguel sent something for you." You went inside. That was your first mistake. The house doesn't look like what you imagined. It's clean, too clean. A flat-screen TV mounted on a concrete wall, a long table with maps and phones and stacks of paperwork. 4 men sit in the corners of the room. None of them look at you directly. That's how you know they're watching. The man with the jaw tattoos, they call him Toro, tells you to sit. He tells you Miguel vouched for you. He tells you that's the only reason you're sitting instead of kneeling. He slides a plate of food across the table. He says, "Eat, you're staying tonight." You say you need to get home. He doesn't respond. One of the men in the corner laughs quietly. You eat. You sleep on a cot in a back room with no window. In the middle of the night, you hear engines outside. 3 vehicles, raised voices in Spanish, then silence. You don't sleep after that. Morning comes like it doesn't care about you. Toro walks in and drops a burner phone on your chest. He tells you a man is going to call. You answer. You say 3 words, exactly 3 words. Package is ready. Then you hang up. That's it. You think, okay, that's nothing, that's survivable. But your hands are shaking when you dial. The man on the other end breathes before he speaks. You say the words. You hang up. Toro takes the phone back. He nods once. He says, "Good. You're useful." You realize something right then that hits harder than any punch could. Useful means you're not disposable. Not yet. But useful also means you just became part of something you can't name. Something that has no forms, no offices, no paper trail. Just silence and consequences. You ask when you can leave. Toro says, "Maybe tomorrow." He said that twice now. Tomorrow doesn't come. Another day inside these walls. You start to map the house with your eyes. Front door, always 1 man near it. Back door, bolted from the outside. 2 cameras in the living area. 1 blind spot near the kitchen hallway. You file this information away like it matters. Maybe it does. A new man arrives on day 4. Older, gray at the temples, dressed better than everyone else. They call him El Contador, the accountant. He sits across from you. He knows your name, your full name, your address in Phoenix, your mother's name. He says this without anger, without threat, just information, just to make sure you understand the geography of your situation. You have no leverage. You have no anonymity. You are already inside the map. He tells you they need 1 more thing from you. Your car, registered in your name, needs to make a trip. You're not driving it. Someone else will. But the car is yours, which means if anything goes wrong, so are the consequences. He slides an envelope across the table. $3,000 for the inconvenience, he says. You stare at the money. You think about your mother's name in his mouth. You take the envelope. By day 6, you know the routine. Phones go off at 10 p.m. No calls in or out after dark. Food comes twice a day, always from the same restaurant, always in unmarked bags. Nobody uses real names except Toro. The men rotate every 48 hours. New faces, same eyes. You start to understand you are not a prisoner in the way movies show you. There are no chains, there are no blindfolds. That's almost worse, because the door is right there, and you know with absolute certainty that if you walked through it without permission, you wouldn't make it to the gate. One of the younger guards, barely older than you, starts talking to you. His name is Ricky. He's from Tucson. He got in through his uncle. He says he's been doing this for 8 months. He says the money is real. He says you just have to learn the rules. Rule 1, never ask where things are going. Rule 2, never look at the cargo. Rule 3, if something goes wrong, you were never here. Rule 4, and he says this slowly, looking you in the eye, don't make friends. Then he walks away. You realize he just broke his own rule, and you don't know if that's hope or a trap. Cargo. On day 8, they bring something in. You don't see what it is. You remember the rules, but you hear it. Movement behind a closed door. Not boxes, not equipment. Something breathing. You sit in the kitchen and stare at the wall and count the tiles for 20 minutes. Toro walks past. He sees your face. He says, eyes down, not your business. The sound stops an hour later. 2 vehicles leave. You don't ask. But whatever innocence you had left about what this operation is, it's gone now. Gone completely. And the worst part isn't what you heard. The worst part is that you stayed quiet. You kept your head down. You followed Rule 1 and Rule 2. And in doing that, you became something you can't walk back from. You became complicit. Not by choice, by silence. The offer. Day 10. El Contador comes back. This time, he brings a folder. Inside, a new identity. Not elaborate, but clean. A driver's license, a social security card, a lease agreement for an apartment in Hermosillo. He says you've proven yourself. He says Toro trusts you. He says there's a position, a real one, coordinating drop points along a corridor between 3 cities. The pay is $8,000 a month, cash, untraceable. You sit there and you do the math like your brain is on autopilot. $8,000 a month, no taxes, $96,000 a year. You think about your cousin, Miguel. You wonder if he knew. You wonder if this was the plan all along. The car, the call, the 3 words, the cargo, all of it a slow audition. El Contador watches you think. He says you have until morning. He says the alternative is simple. You go home, you forget this address, you forget every face, and you hope that's enough. He doesn't say what hope that's enough means. He doesn't need to. You spend the night staring at the ceiling fan turning slow circles in the dark. The decision. You think about home. You think about what's waiting there. Overdue bills, a job that barely covers rent, a future that feels like a hallway with no doors. And then you think about this place, the money, the order inside the chaos, the strange sense of being needed. Ricky knocks on your doorframe before sunrise. He says, whatever you decide, don't decide it for the money. That's how they get you. You ask him what he decided for. He doesn't answer. He just walks back to his post. At 7 a.m., El Contador sits across from you again. You look at the folder. You look at the door beyond his shoulder. You make a choice. If you took the folder, this is what comes next. 3 weeks pass. You learn the grid. Which roads have checkpoints, which hours the Border Patrol rotates shifts, which phones are clean and which ones are compromised. You're good at it. Frighteningly good. The money comes.
You don't spend it loud. You learned that lesson without being told. You send some to your mother. You tell her it's overtime. She says she's proud of you. That one cuts deep. You move through the days like water moving around rocks, smooth, efficient, invisible. But then, week 5, one of your drops doesn't arrive. The driver goes dark. Toro calls you personally. His voice is different now, flat. He asks you one question. Did you check him before you cleared him? You had checked him, but something was off and you pushed it down because the schedule was tight. You say yes. There's a long pause. Toro says, then this is your problem to fix. You don't sleep that night because you understand now what fixing a problem means in this world. And you have to decide again who you are.
No way out. There's no resignation letter. There's no 2 weeks notice. There's no exit interview. You don't leave. You either become so valuable they protect you, or you become a liability they erase. Or you run. And running means leaving everything, your name, your family, your city, and disappearing into a life that isn't yours. You are on day 41 inside this world. You know the routes, you know the contacts, you know the safe house in Nogales, the one in Altar, the one outside Caborca. You know too much, which means you are either asset or threat. There is no middle ground. You sit in the back room where you slept that first night. The same cot, the same concrete walls. The window is still missing. You think about the drive from Nogales. 40 minutes, $500. Your cousin's voice on the phone, easy and casual. It was simple, he said. You think about Ricky who told you not to make friends. Ricky who hasn't been at his post for 6 days. Nobody talks about where Ricky went. You understand what that means. You stand up. You walk to the hallway. You look at the front door. One man, his back is half turned. The blind spot near the kitchen, you mapped it on day 2. Your heart is running faster than your thoughts now. You take one step, then another. The cycle. Maybe you made it, maybe you didn't. But here's the truth about stories like yours. Most of the people who walked through that door in Nogales, they're not in movies, they're not in headlines, they're just gone. Absorbed into a system so large, so old, so deeply embedded in the roads and the money and the silence that one person doesn't even register as a ripple. You were not the first, you will not be the last. Right now, tonight, in a house behind a rusted gate somewhere in the desert, someone else is eating food off a plate they didn't ask for. Someone else just answered a phone and said 3 words. Someone else is looking at an envelope with more money than they've ever held. And somewhere, a phone is ringing, and someone is answering it because they needed rent money, because it was supposed to be simple, because someone they trusted said, "It's just one favor." The gate is still rusting, the fan is still turning, and the cycle doesn't stop.